Hello world! Today I wanted to do something I haven't done in a while and just talk about someone who's been very inspiring in my life. Yes, of course, there's the personal figures in your life like your parents or your friends, or maybe even some close siblings, but there's also some people that are just kind of on a whole different level that you've never really met in your lifetime and probably never will, but something they do or say really just inspires you, and to me that is Elon Musk. I know I'm not the only one who finds him inspirational. In fact, I'm sure there are tons of people out there who agree with me on him being one of the most influential and inspiring and forward-thinking guys we have on the planet today. I'm sure most of you have probably heard of him, but I might just give a little bit of background for those who didn't know that much about him. He started at a very young age designing video games. Before he was even 10 years old, he was coding on computers and programming, and when he got older, to avoid being drafted into the military in South Africa, he moved to America to go to college. But at college, he would usually just read the textbooks of the classes he was in, show up for the tests and the finals, and just take those and pass. But while going to college, he started to make his own business where businesses from all over the country could add their phone number into a online phone book so that anyone could really look them up, which at the time had really never been done before. He had such a forward-thinking mind. He saw the internet as this way that businesses and people could connect and get information and data from each other. Later in life, he also worked on a service that we know today as PayPal. He kind of invented the idea of banks communicating with each other via the internet. This one kind of application could transfer numbers between two people, and instead of sending money through the mail, you could send it online. The whole idea of transferring money online just kind of all started with him and PayPal. So he sold both of these ideas, both the online phone book and the online method of paying people, to eBay, which gave him hundreds of millions of dollars that he could have just relaxed and sat on, but instead, Elon had different ideas for how he was going to spend his money. One of the first times in history, he wanted to start his own space exploration company that we know today as SpaceX. This was almost never done back then, the idea of having a private business try to go to space, because there was almost no way to have a profit out of that. So 100% of the money you pour into it really isn't going to get you anything in return, which typically when you're thinking about a business, the idea is to make money, right? The other thing he wanted to look into is making cool electric cars, which we know today as Tesla. And when both of these companies started, neither of them were very successful. They really just designed one electric car. It was just kind of a sports car. It was really fast, but the range of it was not that good. And it was really only for the super rich, like George Clooney could afford one, but you'd be very rare to see one on the streets. Because that company was so small, they could only really afford to sell really expensive sports cars to a couple celebrities. And also SpaceX, the first few rockets they were firing off weren't making it to orbit, and most of them were exploding up in the air, and it really gave SpaceX a bad reputation because so many of the rockets were just simply failing. So in the early 2000s, if you were looking at Elon Musk, you would kind of just look at it as some crazy business guy who didn't have a lot of success in anything he invested in. But Elon was not going to give up on both of these companies. He worked around the clock on making sure that these engineers he worked with and the teams he hired for these two separate companies were giving it their all and making sure that they explored every single possibility in order to find success. And that policy of keep moving forward, as well as try and try again until we find the right way to do something, is I think what saved both Tesla and SpaceX. In several parts of these companies' histories, they were weeks away from bankruptcy, and Elon Musk dove into his own private savings to save both Tesla and SpaceX. One thing that some people find controversial is he took a lot of government loans when his companies were being bankrupt so that they could stay alive for a couple more weeks. I can understand some people feeling a bit hesitant toward liking someone who just relied on the government to bail him out. A lot of businesses kind of frown upon that because it feels like you're cheating. Your product's not selling well, but the government's giving you all this money. I can understand both points of view on why people might think that's controversial, but the true fact of the matter is Elon Musk was able to pay back all of those loans from the success of the Tesla Model S, which is one of the most popular cars out there today, and definitely one of the most successful electric vehicles on the road. I'm sure you've probably seen one. It was kind of the first car we'd ever seen that was an electric car, but it still could be fast. It could still look slick. It didn't have to look like some boxy looking toy. Most electric cars before the Teslas were not that stylish. I think it was really cool that Tesla introduced the idea that yes, electric battery power is better, but it doesn't have to be ugly. People should think electric vehicles are really cool. They shouldn't think of it as a compromise. And I think the Tesla Model S is what got a lot of people more interested in electric vehicles that weren't necessarily just concerned about their emissions. Most people who were willing to pay for electric cars were people who were worried about how their gas vehicles were affecting the environment, which is a worthy cause, but then again, not everyone out there can afford to spend so much money on an electric vehicle. There wasn't a huge infrastructure for them in terms of of charge stations, and not all of them were very efficient. But the Tesla Model S is still being updated to this day, and Elon committed to putting charge stations all over the world so that you could go from coast to coast with your Tesla. And it's been proven to be extremely successful. I see 2 to 3 Teslas a day usually when I drive into town, and I don't live in a big town. In fact, I live about 40 minutes away from the nearest charge station. But Elon made it really easy to like electric cars with the Model S because it was slick, it was cool, and it was also really, really fast. There are now drag racing videos out there of the Tesla Model S just smoking all of these muscle cars. Absolutely love seeing that. And it's kind of a similar story with SpaceX. There were many times where SpaceX was not doing well and it seemed like it was never going to get off the ground. But that company kept trying and he kept pushing people to look for more answers and to learn from their failures, even though they were getting nothing in return. Elon was just kind of pouring all of his money into this business. And now in more recent years, we're seeing how successful that method of business can be. SpaceX is doing things that NASA never has. What's really great about SpaceX is that they focus most of their attention on making sure, okay, how do we get to space, but how do we get to space effectively? Whereas with other space programs, it was a lot more focused just on, let's get there by any means necessary, and they had an unlimited budget to work with, and usually ended up driving their programs into debt because they required so much money to go to space. But SpaceX had to be really careful because they had a set budget and made sure that if we're going to space, we're gonna make sure we can do it affordably. And it's proven to work. Now with companies like SpaceX, Elon Musk can send satellites into space for a fraction of the cost because they've developed things like the Falcon 9 rocket. The first rocket that is capable of being reused and has been reused. They're crazy engineering that I don't even want to try to start to understand because it seems so crazy to me. These rockets can fly a satellite up to space, turn around, and then land again. The rocket can literally steer itself down to the ground and land on a floating platform in the middle of the ocean. It lands, they reuse it, they fill it up with fuel again, and it can take another spaceship up there, which of course saves monstrous amounts of money because you don't have to lose an entire spaceship every time you want something to go into orbit. A lot of people have doubted Elon Musk along this career, saying that his company is never going to be successful, or because he doesn't have government funding, he can never quite do what NASA can. But now that there are businesses out there now going to SpaceX to deliver their satellites instead of other space programs, SpaceX is finally generating an income. They actually have clients, where now Elon Musk's time is evenly split between Tesla and SpaceX. It's reported that he's working over 100 hours a week on these two businesses, and that's not even counting some of his other projects. You may have heard of the bullet train in California, the Hyperloop, as well as the Boring Company, the idea that we could stop traffic if we started building more roads underground. And the Boring Company specifies in trying to dig tunnels very efficiently and effectively. And that's kind of the big word I see a lot with Elon Musk, is effectively and efficiently, which I extremely respect because that's kind of how I look at making YouTube videos. If it takes me weeks upon weeks to make content, I don't really see it as being worth it. I try to make everything I can in an efficient manner so that it's almost like a fast food line. I can just boilerplate create my content so that I can upload a lot and I can upload good content quick. So in that way, I relate to Elon greatly. I love the way he's looked at the status quo and decided to go above it and say, there's another way of looking at this. We do not have to go by the books or listen to what other people are telling us. That is not an easy thing to do. Elon Musk is even in some interviews where he's accepting the fact that people like Neil Armstrong talked out against him. The first man to walk out on the moon, which he said in that interview was one of the most inspirational moments in his life that made him want to go into space exploration. Imagine if one of the most inspirational people in your life told you you weren't doing things right and that you would not be a success. That must be incredibly hard. And I have mad props for him to say, I don't care what they're saying, I'm going to prove them wrong through my actions. There were tons of businesses out there saying, no, you cannot create a massive network of charge stations for electric cars. The oil companies are going to crush you. No, you can't make your own space exploration company. There would be no way to make money off of that. But I think that's why people find Elon Musk so fascinating, is he's a guy who doesn't really appear to be into this for the money. He's actually genuinely curious about making the world a better place and making us a multi-planetary species. He sees that we went to the moon in the 60s, and then with the space shuttle, we go into orbit, and now the space shuttle discontinued. He sees a progressional failure in the space program, and he says, let's turn that around. Let's go to Mars within the next 20 years. How can someone be that confident about something? For something that's never really happened, he's just saying, we're going to find a way to do it, and it's going to work. And given his track record, I pretty much believe him. It sounds really ambitious that we'll have people on Mars within 30 years, but the fact that he's done everything he's set out to do in his career really makes me believe it's possible, which before I watched Elon Musk or heard about him, I didn't think it was. I thought that was something I might live to see if I lived to be 90 or 100 years old, where he's saying, I'll probably see it when I'm 30 to 40. Now, of course, he's able to create luxurious self-driving electric cars at fairly affordable prices. The prices keep dropping now with the Model 3, which is about to be the most popular Tesla car on the road. I'm sure that as Tesla continues, they're only going to get prices lower, which again, at the beginning of this great journey, everyone would have said was impossible. He also mentions that he doesn't really look at college degrees as a way to work for SpaceX and Tesla. He says they can help, but it's not necessarily required. He wants to find people that are good at being innovative by themselves, not just doing what other people told them to. I really hope we have more people on Earth like Elon Musk in the upcoming century. For those of you who do know about him, I understand that it may be really easy to be watching videos about him and to seeing what he's doing with his life, and then make jokes about yourself about saying, wow, my life is freaking useless. I don't do anything. That man is helping humanity move forward while I just sit here and do nothing. I relate to that because I think those things a lot of the time too. What am I really doing with my life? I'm making YouTube videos about technology that people buy. Note 8, Essential Phone, Google Pixel, iPhone. That's what I'm helping people decide with their lives. But with shows like Hello World and with the main channel and comedy sketches, I'm thinking bigger picture than just the day-by-day thing. If you guys haven't, you should really watch the keynote Elon Musk did on how he's going to get people to Mars. It's really interesting, but the far more cringy part about it is the very end where he opens up the panel to questions, and you realize that all the people who have questions for Elon Musk are just giant idiots. They have the dumbest questions, they don't know what they're asking, and that's where I kind of see my calling in life. Yes, we definitely need people like Elon who can reshape the industry and engineer really creatively so that space exploration can be cheaper and so that electric cars can become the norm. But at the end of the day, we still have a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. We still have a lot of people who don't understand each other, and there's plenty broken about humanity to begin with. And before we start spreading humanity to other planets, can't we also focus on making sure we're good with ourselves first? We definitely need both. I think we need a lot of people on Earth who are good at working with other people, good at challenging them on their beliefs and making them think differently. I think that's particularly important in our development as a species, just as much as it is to explore the universe and to travel to other planets, hopefully someday. But I just wanted to take today, in today's episode of Hello World, to say thank you, Elon, for being such an inspiration to all of us, and please don't stop doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, and I hope you inspire other engineers and dreamers out there like myself to help make the world a better place. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts on Elon Musk are. I know not everyone is a fan of him, but for very different reasons, so of course let me know in the comments